Hey, Moaa family, Dr. China Jude, your Moaa board president. We are at day 3. I had such a good time watching all of our guest speakers and panelists for day 2, and I'm so excited for today. We hope you continue to share your thoughts and opinions about our symposium. We want you to continue to network and have fun and learn. So, without further ado, day 3. Enjoy.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the final day of our 2020 Moaa Annual Symposium. We begin the day with one of my longtime friends and advisors for many years, the incomparable Greg Brown. Greg just recently stepped down as president and CEO of Learfield IMG College. He's one of the most cutting-edge CEOs in America, and we're so very glad to have him with us today. Welcome, Greg.
Hey, Sean. Hey, Sean. It's great to see you. I'm really thrilled. I'm really thrilled to have the chance to be with you. This is going to be fun, and it's nice to see your face.
Well, it's nice to be seen, my friend, and I appreciate that you joining us today. We got some questions. We got some fireside chat questions for you. Obviously, being as a proactive and a visionary in our industry. So we're going to jump right into it because we've got some time. We've got a timeline to get through, but we'll add a little bit when we need to. But let me hit you with the first question, Greg.
Sure.
How does the industry and Learfield IMG College respond during the whole COVID-19 climate right now?
Yeah. So the first thing I would say, Sean, is that in the early days of this developing and unfolding, I was actually still in the chair. I won't, unless we get questions later on, the timing, and I already explained the timing and why I stepped aside because I think we were in a bit of a lull. So I won't go into great detail about all of that, but I would say that the first thing to note is I'm not the CEO anymore. And so I can speak from how I thought about it in the chair during the day. And then I've moved into a role that's more sort of counselor, listener, resource for the management team, advisor to them and the board. And so my role is a little different in terms of just sort of thinking about, the CEO now, Cole Gehagen, a very bright guy, wonderful guy. Now his job is to drive the strategy. Having said that, I'd offer this. It's important to remember that that there have been other times in our history, right, where we've had in our country and certainly impacted our company as well, things that, times when it was very bleak, right? There was consistent drumbeat of fear, calamity. There have been times of serious economic turmoil and unforgettable terrorist attacks, the events of 9/11, Katrina, countless hurricanes, and the bombing of the federal building, the Moaa federal building in Oklahoma City, and and the financial crisis, the Great Recession of 2008 and 2009. And so in my mind, I still have those, they leave an indelible sort of print in your mind. And so those are still really very real to me, and still a pain point. But there's also kind of a rallying point and thing that happens in crisis. And I think you're seeing it. I think you're witnessing it, and I'm guessing the people watching today are also in the organization witnessing it. While you don't ever want tragedy and serious events like this to happen, I do think what you see is they have a real galvanizing effect on teams, on organizations. They bring people together in ways that you cannot imagine, and but for those tragedies and those circumstances, they don't happen. Those teams don't come together, and they don't have the resolve that they otherwise would have. Things chug along great, everything's great. You don't tend to hunker down, rely on each other quite as much. You're sort of independent. And it's interesting, and not to get on a soapbox about faith, but I think it's the same in faith, right? When you're chugging along, everybody's sort of doing well, and you don't quite think about your faith as much. But when things go sideways, you go, holy smokes, I've got to rely on something bigger than me, greater than me, and that involves teamwork. So I think it brings teams together. And so I would say that that's one of the things that's happened in this COVID circumstance. And the other thing I would say to you is that there is always a beginning, a middle, and an end to crises, right? The beginning is like a gut punch. It's a sucker punch. It's like comes out of nowhere. You couldn't fully anticipate what it does in the moment, and it sort of blows you away, and you're exasperated by, I can't believe this is happening. And then you move into this phase of the middle, but there are beginnings to crisis, there are middles to crisis, and there are ends to crisis. The part that I think is most important is, what do we do in the middle? What do we do in the middle that can help us endure and come out the other side in a better place, potentially in a better place than when we went in? And so there is hope, because there will be an end. There always is an end to a crisis. And so I think in times like this, while it does produce fear for many, I think the fear is almost always unproductive in general. And then you search for, okay, well, now we're past the shock and awe of the first phase. What are we going to do to step out and create an antidote to that fear? Antidotes to fear are many. People talk about them, being more kind, more generous, having more empathy, encouraging and helping foster messages of hope for our peers and our colleagues. And by the way, no time is better than now for leaders to really show their mettle and step up and have resolve, to get through these challenging times. So, I think that is incredibly important, teams coming together. And then I think you're seeing hope right now. I think you're hearing today things that are, and this is, I don't know where we are in it. Are we in the middle? I don't think we're in the end. But you're starting to see things start to open up. The economy is starting to open up. Student athletes are starting to come back to campuses across the United States. There's definite plans of college football reopening. Schools have adjusted their calendars to some extent. You're starting to see some of the optimism and hope. And I think that is important. And the last thing I'd say on this, a very important topic, but is, I think at the company, and I think in all organizations across America, the first thing that everybody has to think about is how do they create a safe people. Without that, they're going to be on shaky grounds. They're not going to have the confidence to come back to work and to be engaged with other people. And I think in that environment, CEOs, leaders, all leaders of organizations have to really over communicate in those environments. You're seeing a lot of these conversations, countless other Zoom calls with companies and organizations. And I think our new CEO at Learfield IMG College is doing a terrific job of really leaning in and communicating, not just certainly with our school partners, but he's constantly communicating with the company, and I think and the employees, and I think that's a hallmark and really an important characteristic that has to take place for our company and for all organizations.
Good, good. Well, you kicked it off. You knocked the door down in the first question, so that's good. That shows you where we're going with this. But just to shift gears a tad, to get back into that, where all this knowledge base is so fresh in your mind. Talk to us a little bit about what's the impact on the sponsorships right now, based on what's going on in our industry.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. This has been it most resembles an event that hits the whole country. Some of the events I talked about were newsworthy for the whole country, but it didn't impact directly. It impacted the psyche, but did not impact directly the entire country, perhaps except for the events of 9/11 and perhaps the Great Recession, right? Katrina was isolated. Everybody was interested, curious, concerned, paralyzed in some ways, but it wasn't like it didn't shut down industry across the globe or the country even, right? So this is one of those that has shut down the entire, almost the entire, American and global economy. Mm-hmm. There's nothing like this that people can really call on as an experience. So I'll break it down this way on the sponsor business. There are sort of three or so buckets, I would characterize it. In the sponsor world, you've got sort of existing sponsors who have been involved, with the schools or the conferences or Moaa or other entities, right? And they how they've been impacted or how that's impacted the company and the ecosystem. And then you've got those same companies, and that's more for sort of fiscal 20, the athletic year 20, and how that's been impacted. Then you've got those same companies, and how do you think about them considering their future involvement going forward? And then the third is prospective companies who might have been considering getting involved with an organization or a school or a brand, and then how to think about those. And each of those groups are now behaving differently and are being impacted differently. The first, the existing sponsors that our company had, and I'm assuming all companies in the media rights business had, we've been spending countless hours and days trying to develop new content with every one of our schools. You're seeing it at Northern Illinois. It's all over the place. I mean, you're seeing it all over the place. And we're scrambling our butts off, trying to come up with concepts and make good inventory, things that we can do to take to those companies to say, would this be a suitable replacement for the stuff that we've missed, either through the conclusion of winter sports or anything we would have done for live events or sports during the spring. And those were completely eliminated. And so there has been this race to try and satisfy those companies in a timely way for the lost content that they'd actually bought. And the effect, the work is to try and mitigate the damage financially from those companies, pulling back their funds and saying, no, we're not going to pay for what we promised because we actually don't have the content. And that's really been a complicated process because that's probably 75% of all the companies who do business with our company. And we have something in the order of, 15,000 unique brands that do business with our company across our 200 school portfolio. And so, there's thousands of those conversations you have to have. And then it's multiple conversations with each of those companies. So that's been incredibly difficult. And it's a lot of hand holding, a lot of empathy, a lot of work with those companies, trying to figure out how we can keep some of those dollars so that the impact on our institutional partners is not as big as it could be by creating new stuff. Then you've got the in addition to that, trying to come up with suitable inventory replacements. I mentioned that for some of those businesses. But now when we're reaching out to some of those companies, here's the weird part, not the weird part, the unfortunate part. Now many of them have closed, and many of them, even though they had inventory, their businesses have been so impacted they can't even pay anyway. And so the conversation goes like, well, hey, we're calling to talk to you about stuff you've lost or missed or we can't provide for you. And they're saying, well, don't worry about it. I couldn't pay you if you did it. And so now you've got that. You've got slow pay or no pay negotiations in addition to the mitigation of the content that was lost. And you put all that in the stew, and it's a really messy kind of circumstance. Some of the larger brands, national brands, they tend to be more just, it's just going to take us forever to pay you, but they're going to pay you. But the regional and local brands, which still makes up the vast majority of what gets identified with college sports, you know, those folks are definitely being impacted, and we're trying to find, you know, sort of ways to delay or prolong payments and the like. And then thinking about the future, right? How do you think about next year? Well, we're going to sponsors, both existing and new sponsors, prospective sponsors, and we're saying, here's what we're thinking is going to happen. But yet always before in the history of us working in my 36 years, I've never had to go to companies or big brands and say, we're actually not sure what we can sell you. We hope we have football. And so, you know, and you don't say it like this, but so what do you think about us if we, you know, have football? Would you be interested? And what most of them want, companies want, and you see this in the stock market, insecurity causes pressure downward, and that's what you experience from brands. And they're going to be very reluctant to commit to things that don't have certainty. And so it's impacting, I would say, the go forward in a more meaningful way than it's impacting what happened in 20 with sponsors, because we had a lot of the season over, and, you know, it was that last sort of 10-15% of the business, if you will, or maybe 20 at the high. And now we're talking about the vast majority of the sponsor business that's a little more impacted. And so we've just got to keep being resilient, and staying focused, and also coming up with more ways to engage those sponsors in other ways than they have been used to. There are bright spots. You know, we're hearing companies that are coming back and are excited and those kinds of things. But the issue is the volume. It's not the majority, it's the minority. Every week we do, you know, around the company, and I see them and hear them, although I'm not leading them. We'll hear, you know, Good News Thursday, where people share stories across the entire United States about something happened that was new and exciting, so we can share best practices of, oh, this is opening up and this. But the problem is the order of magnitude is pretty small. And so we just have to, you know, I think as a company, we have to keep our head down, and I think the company has to keep its head down and keep going. You can't just throw in the towel. You know, there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah. So this is a great segue. So if you were a director of athletics in this moment, hold on. What would you be doing to help secure the future of college athletics?
I would be in regular therapy. and that's
Thanks,
no
Greg.
joke.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it.
That's no joke. Look, I have so many great friendships and relationships with guys like you and all across the country. And I just have, just tremendous respect and empathy and concern for, you know, people in your chair. These jobs, no matter what you get paid, it's not enough. They just got exponentially more complex. I do think on the other side of this, that athletic directors will have been tested and will be better capable of leading organizations than they ever would have been. And that's maybe the silver lining. But when you're in the vortex, when you're in the storm, like you are today, it's an incredibly difficult role. That said, I would say, you know, look, the first thing, and everybody, it's really many of the things that people are doing. But you got to safeguard your people. You've got to safeguard your student athletes. You've got to safeguard your administrative staff and your coaches. You have to safeguard your people. Like, without the people, there's nothing that exists, and we can all pack it up and go home. So we have to find ways to protect people's health and well-being. And so that's job one. Everybody's, you know, that's not a novel thought, you know, but you have to do that. And most assuredly, and you know, again, I don't want to be preachy about this, and I'm a person of faith, and some are, some aren't, and everybody has their choice about this. But and I'm sure people are doing this, but I have been and would be extremely prayerful. I think that that I don't think there's a way to find a path forward without my faith. I've believed that for a long time. And so I'd be relying a great deal on my prayer life for wisdom and a sense of discernment and confidence in these times. I'd want to be digging in and be really relying on my faith. And so that is a key component that I would you know, encourage people to really be thoughtful about. And I'm sure most or many are. That's not a novel idea, but I just think it's helpful to be reminded. I need to be reminded of it, and so me saying it reminds me of it. And the other thing, and this is going on, you know, you're seeing this, all the Power 5 conference directors are engaged every day now or weekly. And so as an athletic director, I would be relying on other athletic administrators, professional sports executives, knowledgeable health professionals. Everybody I possibly could talk to, I would be talking to them. Because I think there are going to be novel ideas here and there that wouldn't necessarily, you know, if you just meet with your administrative team all the time and don't step out of that, you're going to get groupthink. Mm-hmm. And I think you're going to want new ideas, you know, look, the subject is diversity, you know, and diversity of thinking is incredibly important. And so hearing from different people and how they're handling the situation, I would have, and I think this, you know, I would have this taped on my, you know, my credenza saying, I must have my curiosity in overdrive right now. I have to have my curiosity in overdrive. What are other people thinking? What are they hearing? What are they seeing? What are they experiencing? There's no limit to people's imagination and ingenuity. And I want to hear interesting ideas from other people, and they're going to be bubbling up out there constantly. And I'd want to be knowing it. You know, I'm a voracious reader of the trades, and if I see somebody at the Miami Dolphins and those folks talking about they've got a model of, you know, exiting and egress and all that, and times I've been on the phone talking to the Garfinkel and those folks and saying, all right, what's that look like for you? I mean, I don't know. I just want to be, I'd be pushing it to try and figure that out. And then I think the whole, we know this is going to happen. We just don't know to the extreme, but all your fans aren't going to be in, all your normal numbers of fans aren't going to be in the stadiums and arenas this year. It's just not going to happen. And so when you park that aside and have confidence that that's happening, then you can move to a phase of, okay, well, what else are we going to do to engage our fans, and this will push innovation, and we'll talk a second about that, what we're doing as a company. But I think that we have to find ways to engage those fans 365, 24/7, 365, because there's going to be some number. It could be 50% or it could be 60 or 70% of the fans that are normally invited with open arms into your venues to have that experience. And now they aren't going to be comfortable doing it for a while, or you can't, or you're just simply not going to be able to because of the limitations placed on you by the health authorities or others. And so we have to be expanding our digital outreach and our products to reach our fans wherever they are. And so if we're not driving innovation in this time frame, we will never drive innovation, because this is the penultimate time when we have to do that. And then I would say working our butts off, and everybody is looking at cost savings and looking at new revenue streams. I don't think any of my ideas are novel, but I do think there are novel ideas out there about how to do this, right? And I'd be a sponge. I'd want to be an absolute sponge. And so, and then I'd say lastly, and you've seen this, I mean, you're saying it, everybody's saying it. Hey, we're going to start out with this plan, and then you're going to be pivoting. I don't care what that plan is. People are just going to have to be very flexible. You know, you're going to be thinking of and using ideas that you thought, and we all thought, were beyond the realm of possibility. Mm-hmm. I mean, if we have to say, all right, we're just going to have to play these games in this time frame, you know, you're going to be playing those games in this different time frame, and it may not be ideal, and it may kind of suck, and it just that's life. It's things aren't going to go perfectly, and it could be a royal pain in the butt, and you know and we're going to be going through, you know, some hell on this, you know, and Winston Churchill's, everybody's been quoting Winston Churchill. Isn't it interesting? All of a sudden he's been, among countless others, but you know, Winston Churchill famously said, if you're going through hell, keep going. And so I think that's all you can do, right? If it's choppy waters, keep going. We don't have a choice.
I think all well said, Greg. And I'm going to pivot here just a tad. And much is known about the Moaa Learfield relationship in the Minority Academy, right?
Yep.
And just great work. And I can't tell you, underneath your watch and what you have done in our partnership with Moaa, with Learfield, we have done great things together on this. Yep. But what strategies can Moaa and Learfield IMG College implement to prepare people of color for advancement in this industry moving forward?
So we're not scripted in the first place, but I am going to take just 10 seconds, yeah, it's probably going to be 30, and go off topic here just a little bit. And if you'll indulge me and forgive me for doing this, but the events of this past several days that have taken place across our country, with the protests and the social unrest, and certainly a good amount of violence and some rioting, they're not the topic for today, and I don't intend to get political. But undoubtedly, the current social issues and climate that we're in, I think, underscores very clearly the importance and the need of work that Moaa is doing around diversity and opportunity. And this very stuff that we're talking about, particularly as you raise this topic, that we're talking about today. It's efforts like this that, you know, can make a small difference. And look, if we can all just lean in and work on the things we can work on and start to make a small difference, then we have a chance in the aggregate to make a really big difference. And so the work that you guys were doing and we were sort of partnering up and doing together, man, it just got amplified in terms of its importance. We have to keep going. We have to we have to expand. We have to dig deeper. We have to become more curious and better listeners, and we have to be hand in glove in the way we explore these ideas, and we have to learn. And so I really think it's an important stuff, and I'm just so grateful that we already had a partnership in place, and now we can use perhaps the climate to even further expand how we think about what we do. But now back just a minute for how this all started. You know, Sean, as you know, Moaa had a big impact on, obviously not big impact, I mean, helped to start the Minority Academy. And after some initial discussions that took place, and frankly, those were almost a decade ago, with you and Stan Johnson and Roger Gardner and a few other folks. Yeah. Met down at NACTA convention, formulating a plan. And then we launched the Academy formally in 2014 with the mission, and I think it's an audacious goal, an audacious statement, but to change the face of college sports business, one person, one position at a time. And our goals, I think, they included attracting more minority applicants, obtaining a more diverse employment pool for our company, but not just for our company, but expanding it for others, and strengthening network and employment opportunities for people of color throughout the sports industry at large. We did that for 6 or 7 years, and just for those who are not as intimately familiar, just frame it up. We selected, 12 to 15 people, young professionals of all ages, and of all a variety of color, right, across the country, from different businesses, some professionals, some college athletics, some industry, for a 5-day experience of training and networking that we hosted. And at the Academy, participants learn more about our company. They learn about college sports industry, while we're also working on site with some of our selected school partners. We went out and sent them out, excuse me, for a few days on the road to meet and see what actually took place at our businesses. The Academy featured athletic directors and commissioners and folks like Gene Smith, and I mean, countless notable leaders in college sports, industry influencers that provided really valuable insights on current issues, and that interacted on a social basis as well with the participants of the program. And since the program's inception, I'm happy to report that we hired, a number of Academy participants. I don't think, frankly, we have done enough. I think we have to keep going, but we are scratching the surface on what this might become. And as you know, Sean, and some may not know, we took a step back this year, pushed the pause button, actually before all this COVID stuff started happening. And we said, let's examine what the program's about. Is it doing what we said we wanted it to do? And by the way, I think that's important. Sometimes organizations get, and things like this get all caught up in just sort of pushing ahead and doing the same thing we've always done and never examining, well, what did we start out to do? Is that really still the best purpose? Should we agree? And I think that's really a healthy exercise. And so that process took place. And so I think that was a very healthy examination. The group convened industry leaders to give some feedback on some of those things a few months ago. And there are a variety of opinions that are still being considered. And that are consistent with our overall diversity and inclusion initiatives. And we're going to continue to pursue and sort of develop and redevelop the format. But in some ways, while that's on pause for this year, frankly, I'm privileged to be able to do this with you, and it was a little bit of a gift that we got to be able to share this story of what this is about, because we want it very widely publicized and have as many people know about it, and frankly in the future participate in it as possible. So virtual meetings like this, and we get a chance to reach a much bigger audience with the story. So that's actually exciting for me and for our company. And I think the other selfish part for our company, when our people, and regardless of, whether they're Caucasian or people of color, it doesn't really matter. When we actually get to host that, our people end up learning a whole bunch of things they never thought they'd get to learn. Mm-hmm. And by the way, that's the whole point, right? It helps our people get their eyes opened and get exposure to more diversity, even by hosting, by hearing the speakers, and by some of our other employees coming in and just listening in, and they see that we've made it an important initiative for the company to become more diverse. And they say, well, wait a second, what's that mean to me? And how do I think about it? We want our people to be curious and exploring and digging into more ways that we can become a more diverse organization and create more opportunities for people of color. But I want to, on that subject, my last comment, I just want to again say how grateful we are, Sean, for you and the positive impact that you and Stan and all the fine folks that were engaged from Moaa that they've had on our company. And frankly, I don't think it's just on our company. I think it's on the industry. And, I'd like to see us double down on this and really, I'd like to see it, us blow it out of the water. And I think we have a chance to do that going forward. And I'm excited about that. And regardless of whether I'm a full-time employee at the company, I will be there. And I love speaking to the group. And more importantly, I love meeting the group. It's just really been a gift to me, and it's been fun to be able to be a part of.
Outstanding. Well, again, the feeling are definitely mutual, Greg. You have been a leader among leaders in this area, and we really appreciate the partnership. And quite frankly, we really appreciate the demonstrated outcomes that have been produced because of the Academy. So that's big time. That's big time for us. We've got about 5 minutes before we jump into a Q&A.
Sure.
So you teased us a little bit about those revenue streams and opportunities out there. Can you get it done in about 5-6 minutes? I love you, but can you make it happen before we?
I'll do it.
Outstanding. So,
I'll do it. I'll try and do it in 3 or 4. So there was a significant announcement made by Cole and the company and the leadership team recently around this new platform called Fanbase. I mean, look, here's the thing. The bottom line is we have to engage fans in their social and digital lives where they are. And so it's important. Fanbase is essentially, we're standing up a data warehouse, and we're using all of the many of the companies that already have underlying data in them, like Paciolan and Sidearm and CLC, so licensing and other companies in the organization. And what we're effectively going to do, and this is a specific product, but it's the broader narrative of where the company's headed, just to be clear. I'm targeting this because I think it's important people understand this. And we're moving into a phase where we have got to engage fans where they are. And we have got to, in my opinion, provide dashboards and information and KPIs that universities can use. And it's not just for our company. Universities and schools across the country have to understand better who their audiences are and what the behaviors of those people are, so that they can better target it for fundraising, for ticket sales and the like. And so they just understand how they can accommodate and deliver on their fan engagement. And so Fanbase is an incredibly exciting new initiative that the company launched. Actually, started developing several months ago, but then formally branded it, named it, and introduced it. Schools are already coming on board, help with releases to share their data so that we can help take that data and then ignite our sponsorships even further by allowing our brand partners to better target their customers in very specific ways based on behavioral things. So I would say the bottom line is the company is pivoting in a very significant way. The days of the meat and potatoes of signage and broadcast, critically important, but that's not going to be enough to take us into the next phase, the next place that we're going. And if we're going to support our partners in a fulsome way to try and get back to, you know, where the economics are helpful or more favorable, we're going to have to pivot, and so are schools.
That's great. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. I know just from experience with my GM and working at my institution, there's a lot of front loading of what you just said. So that really helps us to understand that taking a look at the revenue streams, as well as obviously the consolidation on the reductions of expenses. You know, we're so quick and tempted to cut, you know, but I think cutting is one thing, but being short-sighted about those cuts can be devastating operationally. So what you bring to the table,
Amen. Amen,
is big time.
You can cut too deep, and maybe the resources don't. Maybe they just need to be reallocated and moved to different places that are now more productive than they may have been otherwise.
No question. No question. Well, we're going to pivot. We're going to. I'm already using your jargon already. We're going to pivot a little bit. I love it. I've taken a lot from this call. We're going to pivot a little bit, and we're going to take questions from the audience.
Sure.
Please use the chat feature to ask the questions. We'll let you gulp down maybe something right there, Greg, because we're going to fire at you in a couple of seconds. But let's move forward. Let's see what kind of questions we have.
Great.
All right. Hi, Greg. First question. What's the most significant quality a CEO or AD must have in the current climate?
Wow, great question. So, yeah, I mean, I commented on it a little bit before. I think it's probably not one characteristic, but I'll mention it again. I would say curiosity. I think we all have to be asking more than telling. We have to be a sponge. We have to dig in and try and find out where people are, where brands are, where schools are. And if you're an athletic director, the comfort level of your people to come into work, trying to understand the risk profile of student athletes coming back on campuses. I think my inclination is that the most important characteristic today, while certainly strategy is important, I think curiosity, and then I think that will ultimately lead to helping inform how you really develop a winning culture in this new world order of what it's like today.
Excellent.
That's a great answer. Thank you for that, Greg.
Sure.
Next question. What advice do you have for employers or leaders in general who are working towards having not only a diverse staff, but also an inclusive staff, giving everyone a voice and equal opportunity?
Sorry, can you ask the first part of that question again? I was a little off.
What advice do you have for employers or leaders who are working towards having not only a diverse staff, but also an inclusive staff, giving everyone a voice and equal opportunity?
Yeah. So, look, I think my personal opinion is that it's a little, I'm going to go back to what we talked about a minute ago on the subject of the Minority Academy. I think it's one thing to talk about becoming a more diverse organization and a more inclusive organization. I think it's another thing to put actions with it. And I think until leaders make a decision that they're going to quit talking about it, and they're actually going to start putting resources and actions to work, I think it's going to look like, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I think it looks like lip service. I think it's, you're seeing, you see companies, I mean, look, in this environment, in this climate, everybody's making statements, right? Everybody's coming out with statements. And by the way, they're incredible thoughts and very thoughtful leaders. And I'm not condemning any of that. I'm only saying that when people put their money, their resources, their actions, their footsteps and their movements with their words, then you in fact have an opportunity to demonstrate to your people that your commitment is to be in fact inclusive and diverse. And until that happens, it's just words on a piece of paper, or it's a video chat, and people dipping into the pocket. Dak Prescott, saying I'm going to commit $1 million to this, and look, people are going to action, and he's a leader in a football team, but I think leaders have to step in there, and there are countless examples of where wonderful leaders are doing amazing things and are putting actions and words into action. But I think until everybody understands that that's a requirement, I think we're going to fall short.
That's an excellent point. Well said. Well said. Thank you. This next question comes from Chad Jones Hicks. When will you have more information on the Minority Academy, and when will it start?
So I think it'll be later, probably. I think when the dust settles on a little bit more on COVID and we get into probably the fall, so that we can plan for the spring. I would say that's probably the right timing. I personally won't. There are folks, and we've got a tremendous HR team that's going to be more active in this time. And so they're now talking about it and what it looks like. But I want to be sensitive to distracting athletic directors right now, and I want them at their best on their thinking about what we should be doing. And right now, they're just now welcoming student athletes back to campuses. And I don't think we're going to get everybody's best thinking and full attention when they're just trying to keep their head above water. And so, look, the calendar and the clock may even change. We may turn it into, instead of, when we had it before, it may get pushed back 90 days or 120 days, but I think we want everybody's best thinking. Stan and Sean may have better insight into that, but I don't want us to be insensitive to the pressures that the athletic directors are under right now. And we've got to have Moaa and these ADs and leaders engaged with us, because we don't do this on our own. And so I want to be sensitive to the pressures they're feeling.
No question. Greg, we got a little time here. We're going to go back to this rapid fire topics, because I'm salivating to hear your perspective on this. And I know that we have others doing the same. So you ready? You got your seatbelt on? I'm
ready.
Okay. So again, just your brief thoughts, because these things could take up a couple hours worth of conversation, as you know. So again, rapid fire. Name, image, likeness.
Wow. Is that short enough?
A little bit more.
Okay, just a little bit more. So look, the legislative, I think it's called the Legislative Solutions Group, is putting more meat on the bone, right? From the working group proposed there and put out, I think, I don't want to be disrespectful to what they did, because I think they did a really good job. They got some things down on paper. Now the Legislative Resource Group has to refine that. I think there are going to be countless unintended consequences. I think one of the principal issues is that students are going to find themselves, in my opinion, student athletes, on an island. And because of the way people are talking about it, the schools right now and everything else you do with student athletes, it's hand in glove. You're helping them. You're trying to engage with them. You're helping tutor them. You're helping life skills. You're helping, on and on and on and on. And this one, they're saying, schools, you can't be involved. And so in many ways, you can't, student athletes can't use the marks. I get it. But I wonder if the attempt at separating church and state here, so dramatically, if the student athletes are going to be if they're going to be capable of doing this without having countless unintended consequences, and I worry about it greatly. There's so much golf left in this hole and definition. I think it's going to be choppy waters. At the end of the day, I don't think the first iteration of what this looks like is going to be anything in terms of what it looks like as it plays out. 5 years from now, it'll be completely different. There does have to be a national solution, and there is no possible way that this can be administered, in my opinion, without a national solution. It's going to be like whack-a-mole otherwise, and I think it's a slippery slope.
Well said. Well said. All right, here's another one for you. It's another fastball. Transfers and the transfer portal.
Yeah. Well, look, you and I've talked a little bit about this. I worry about the group of five becoming a farm club for the Power Five, and what does that do to the value and the integrity of the game? And are all the best players just going to simply after a couple of years of fine tuning, they weren't ready to go play at a Power Five big school, but they go to a MAC school to really get bigger and work out for 2 years, and then they're gone. And so you've got, I worry about constant turnover and the unintended consequences of this. Will you ever have a full team of talented seniors anymore in group of five schools? Will they only be juniors or sophomores? And what does that do to the math on how you have to recruit? I mean, if a bunch of kids, you're going to have to sign 40 kids one year because 18 transferred. I just think there's a lot of unintended consequences. I do think student athletes should have the opportunity to go where they want to go, but I do think they're going to be to not have some guardrails around it. There are some, but I think it's a dangerous topic. The transfer portal has become too easy. We've talked about this. Players unwittingly are putting their names in the transfer portal. His head coach, says, okay, Johnny, thanks for being here. And he gives away his scholarship. Nobody takes him. Nobody picks him up. He comes back to his original intended school and says, okay, that didn't work out. I want to play here. And all of a sudden, coach says, wait a second, Johnny, you said you were gone, and now he's out.
Yep.
And now he can't finish his education. I mean, that would be catastrophic for, how many kids are going to do that where they can't go back? And now what are they going to do? Go home? I just think it's incredibly risky.
I think that, we talked about that for a bit, and, we don't have that data yet, but we will have that data where as soon as that young person goes into the portal, that coach is already recruiting to fill that spot. And,
they have to.
Yeah, exactly. So that data is going to be, that's where I think we miss on several levels, but I think that's a great insight. I totally do. I think that's,
and I don't know, I'm assuming a year from now, you'll be able to share that data with student athletes so that they understand the risk profile of what happens if I jump in there. And I can't come, what happens, how many student athletes jump in there, don't get picked up, lose their role at the last school, and then what happens? How many young people won't get the opportunity to finish their education because they don't get moved to and selected at the next school?
Yeah,
I worry about that.
To be continued on that one.
I think that's right.
Yeah. All right, and the last rapid fire question. Again, this is the Tyson blow, knockout blow question here. State of the NCAA.
Yeah. everybody knows this. NCAA doesn't control football. Really is made up is really principal, rules making and basketball, right? It's an association. It's a membership. And so I don't place all of the challenges of the current day on the NCAA. It's made up of presidents and influenced by all the membership. And so I do think by definition, it's more like federal government. It's a bureaucracy. It's very hard to turn the ship around. I think it's been I think it's been too slow to make changes. I think there needs to be some reform so that in fact changes can happen in a more meaningful, timely fashion. But it's not like the NFL. There is no czar. Somebody can't stand up there and say, here's the new rules for COVID testing. Here's the new rules for how we're going to re-engage in college football this fall. Here's the way that doesn't happen, right? It's not, there is no commissioner, and Adam Silver would stand up and say, this is the way it's going to be. Now he'd take input certainly from others, but he would in fact rule and make a decision and move on. The NCAA is a membership. And so an association. And so therefore it's by definition, the design of it is incredibly difficult. And so I have empathy for it. I don't know if I have sympathy for it. But I do think there has to be some reform. And I do think it has to shrink. I think it needs to outsource some of the other activities that aren't necessarily core, and move along enforcement. They're just countless things that perhaps could be done. But I don't think it rests all on the shoulders of just leadership at the NCAA.
Yeah. So, you had just said the out-resourcing piece of it. I've heard that in a lot of discussions that I've had nationally with colleagues. Are we asking the NCAA to do too much? Has it evolved
Yes.
to something else?
Yes.
From your perspective? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I think we've asked them to do, I think either we've asked them to do way too much, or by, some organizations just sort of, it happens, just morph into other things. They get away, they can get away from what their core responsibilities were. And so, yes, I do. I think that there are ways to have it be a finer tuned organization, but it's going to take significant reform.
Well, Greg, I can tell you right now, this has been outstanding. This has been outstanding. And I will tell you that I'm not going to say we are going to miss you, because you're not going anywhere. You're going to be around. You're going to be in the phones of many folks, as well as the spirit of what you've done. Your legacy has been cemented. And we definitely appreciate you for what you have done as a leader. And quite frankly, I appreciate you as a friend. Having a colleague that understands our industry and who has put the time in and has done things at the next level. So I want to thank you. I want to thank your continued level of support and insight, and I wish you the best in your retirement. I really do.
Yeah.
So having said that, again, it was a great pleasure chatting with you, and I know you'll still be around advising us. I personally am grateful for our friendship, and we really do wish you the best. So God bless you, and now let's watch this video.
Thank you.